Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Start a Newsletter for Free with me, Claire Venus. Just a little bit about me. I am an engagement consultant and mentor. I've worked in the Northeast my entire career. I live up in Shilbottle, just outside of Alnwick. And when the pandemic hit, I really pivoted my work. I was also pregnant for the whole of the pandemic year. So I spent lots of time investing in new ways to deliver what I love to deliver, but to a global audience. And since that point, I've learned lots about a platform called Substack, which I wanted to dive into some of its capabilities today. So that's what this workshop is. If you're catching on replay, you're so welcome. There'll be some points where you'll be able to pause the video and do some journaling prompts and catch up with us again. There is an interactive chat function live here on Zoom, but if you're watching the replay, there's that exists on my website as well. So if you do have questions as you're watching the replay, you can find a chat box to chat to me, and then obviously I'll get back to you when I can. Everybody's just been introducing themselves, so I'm going to just have a little check of who's here. You're so welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. If you haven't got a notebook and pen, ideally a few pens of different colours, that would be great if you can grab those things. Anything that you need to be more comfortable, a cup of tea, glass of water, feel free. There's a couple more people coming in the waiting room. Just have a read through. Illustrator, writer. Lovely, thank you. Yes, feel free to keep introducing yourself in the meeting chat. And if you've got an online presence for people to have a look at, feel free. So, okay, let's get started. So I'd really love just a show of hands from anybody who has heard of Substack. If you can raise your hand or raise your virtual hand and let me know, just so I can get a sense of it. It's hard for me to see everybody on screen because of my small laptop, but yeah, okay, so some people have heard of Substack. Is anybody already writing on the platform? I am going right back to basics, so it's fine. Doesn't look like you are, but some of you have heard of it, okay. Okay, good. So I've been writing on Substack since April 2022, and I've been teaching about the platform since like April 2023. And then I launched a whole separate Substack to hold space and teach people about the capabilities of Substack. So I've had a really brilliant time doing that work. And one of the things that I hear the most is people are quite confused. You know, they don't want another social media to plug into. They feel quite overwhelmed. There's an app. What does that mean? Like, do I have to kind of start a whole new following? Am I telling my current online following about it? So we're just going to start right back at the beginning around the question of, if you currently have a newsletter, or if you don't, what do you feel about a newsletter? So what does that bring up in you? Do you receive other people's newsletters? Have you been meaning to start one? Do you feel like it's a good thing to build a mailing list? What's everybody feeling in the room? If you put the answers in the chat, you're very welcome to unmute if you want to, but if it's more comfortable for you just to put it in the chat, I can read those out. But I'm just trying to get a sense of what you feel about a newsletter as somebody who reads them, as somebody who has one on another platform, just to kind of get a sense. Okay, I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey while we're doing that. So I started a newsletter in 2017 on MailChimp. And at that point, and I still think this is true, you can have up to 400 subscribers on MailChimp for free. So you don't have to pay MailChimp a monthly fee until you hit that 400 subscribers. So that was really interesting to me because I had no sense of how many people would want to sign up for a monthly newsletter from me. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just knew that I wanted to hold space for my own writing and to talk about some of the brilliant projects I was involved in the arts and cultural sector. I also want to share more about the life that we live in Northumberland. I'm really passionate about Northumberland as a place. So I wanted to talk about the things that we were doing as a family. And also how the environment was impacting on my creative practice. So I just gave it a go, you know, set one up and watched a couple of YouTubes. I kept it really basic, and I wrote that from 2017 every single month around the first of the month. So I wasn't really strict. It was like the first, second, third, sometimes the seventh. It would go out to everybody who'd signed up. And I did that between 2017 and then November 2022, which is the point that I moved my mailing list into Substack and made the two things merge. So my mailing list on MailChimp was called Notes from the Sea. It had an identity. It always started with a beautiful photo of the Northumberland Coast, wherever I'd been and wherever I'd managed to get a photo of that month would go in there. And then there'd be some sort of chatty update and some kind of questions to my audience. Most of the time, it felt like I was just talking to myself, but it was a real tool to kind of practice using that voice, to practice how that felt, what I was comfortable with sharing, what I wanted to say, where I wanted things to land. I was always interested, you know, who signed up for that. At the point that I moved it into Substack, so after 6 years, it was still at around about 300 subscribers, and they'd mainly come from Instagram. If I'd shared, I've got a newsletter if you'd like to sign up. I'd done a couple of partnerships with kind of like-minded folks, and made a couple of exclusive things that people could sign up to. I also got some funding through Business Northumberland to do an advert. So that drove quite a few people to my mailing list, but I never really felt like I knew who they were or what they really wanted from me. There was no creative exchange. There was no conversation. It was just me literally sending out an email to however many people. So that was kind of 6 years of newsletter practice. And I didn't expect anything of that newsletter until I released my first ebook in the pandemic. And then when I did that, I used the newsletter list and my social media to say, hey, I've written an ebook. This is what it's all about. Would you like to buy it? And at that point, I realized people were listening and people bought it. And it was a shock. You know, I was like, I didn't really know if that would work, who was there, if people would buy it. But yeah, it did really, really well. And it was a beautiful exchange of energy. There was lots of conversation that happened as part of that. But that was kind of the first time I knew who was on the other end of the list. So let me see what you guys are saying. So Gawain, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I'm quite reluctant, but can see that it would be a really good idea. Yeah, and I guess what we're asking ourselves right here and now is, why is it a good idea? Why do we think it is a good idea? So Jacqueline says, I feel like a newsletter needs a real focus. I'm often overwhelmed by the number that land on my inbox. So I'm keen to understand how you really engage readers to open your newsletter. I've used MailChimp and blogged on WordPress. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And we'll come on to open rates and expectation around that. Katie says, want to build a mailing list so as not to be reliant on social media platforms for sure. Love receiving others' newsletters. We want to call it our mortal portal. I love that. That's really cool. Ruth says, I don't have a newsletter, but would like to start one as I feel it would be a good way to keep in touch and keep connected to customers, especially those not on Instagram. Amanda says, even though my newsletter is very basic, it's a really helpful way of getting people to sign up for workshops and courses and often get new signups after I've sent it out. And then Wendy says, the Bridge is 1-year-old next month and is volunteer-run newsletter for Berwick. I have other fiction writing I would like to build an audience for too. Okay, so we're in this space of being curious and interested whether we can build an audience, whether we can talk directly to an audience. Obviously, everybody has a different relationship with social media, but for me, it's felt quite soul-destroying building a social media presence to then only be able to talk to a very small percentage of those people. So I have over 3,500 followers on Instagram, which isn't huge numbers, but if I was in a room with that many people, that's a lot of people. And out of that number, there's about 100 or so that would watch my Instagram stories if I was talking about the projects that I was doing or sharing my work or sharing anything else. About 100 out of the 300, out of the 3,500. Whereas on my mailing list, it's much more than that. The open rate is relatively high. I feel like I hold those people's attention. We have conversations backwards and forwards. And actually, somebody receiving something in their inbox, the statistic is that they're twice as likely to buy something from you. So if you do have a service-based business or you have a shop or you want to sell any of your artwork, plugging it into social media is fine and good, but it can be difficult to feel like it's getting anywhere. It feels like you're doing all the things and maybe somebody isn't buying it, and then you'd start this newsletter and then it's like, okay, I've received it into my email inbox. I hear what you're saying about overwhelm and being careful to craft something that feels really good to you and something that you feel really happy and centered and proud of. And that's where we're going to go next, because newsletters are unique to us. So what we want to say in a in a newsletter. If it's monthly, seasonally, weekly is completely down to us. So we need to create a practice of writing or sharing. And I'm going to say both because on Substack, it can be audio, it can be video. So we would typically think that it was written, that would be something written, maybe a photo, maybe some nice design in there, but it absolutely doesn't have to be on Substack. So you could do either. Substack was built as a platform for writers. So when I got to the platform kind of 3 years after it had been started, it was mostly writers and really brilliant writers, sophisticated writers, people who had really brilliant things to say and talk about. It shifted a lot since then. So there's a lot more creative people. There's a lot more multi-hyphens on there than there was when I first started using the platform. But going back to you and your newsletter, one of the things that I hear the most when I work with people one-to-one and I say, have you got a newsletter? Have you started collecting email addresses? They say, I don't know what I would talk about. And I definitely don't know what I would talk about consistently in any sort of regular pattern. So I'd love to take your notebook and pen now and just have a little go at thinking about both what you've received as a consumer of newsletters that you enjoyed and you liked and you thought was nice, and the ideas that you might have or that have been bubbling up for you. So you might tell yourself, okay, I'll do one a season. I'll do 4 this year, right? That is absolutely fine and perfect. It might be less, it might be 2. I'm going to do 2 big chunky newsletters. That's what I'm going to do. What would the content of those be? If you want to write more regularly, where will your content come from? What stories will you tell? What will you have to offer people? So I'll put this in the chat, but on the left-hand side of our paper, we're going to write newsletters that I liked and why, what was in them. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to talk about what it is we would like our newsletter, like what is the flavor of that? What does that feel like? Pop that in the chat and give us a few minutes. Okay, we'll just have another minute or two. Okay, so I'll let you know what I've written down, and if anybody else wants to put either the left-hand side column or the right-hand side column, what came up for you in the chat, that would be lovely to hear from you. So the last newsletter that I remember reading was from Make and Mend Festival. Some of you will probably know it. It's a festival of craft, really, craft and well-being in the Tees Valley area. I remember that they put a really inspiring quote at the end, something a bit light-hearted. They usually do that. It's usually short and brightly coloured. It's usually interesting. I usually open it, you know, I'm usually interested. I've been to the festival, I've spoken at the festival. I like Rachel and Lindsay, you know, it's like, yeah, lovely. What have they got to say to me today? And then another one was from someone called Susanna Conway, who is an online business owner. She does a journaling course and lots of other kind of courses. And she's been working online a long time. I've had her on my podcast, actually. So I really like Susanna's newsletter. She's always really honest in her storytelling, and it'll be something relatively mundane, but she'll kind of put her spin on it. There's usually photos of our cats. And yeah, she's really open in the way that she talks. She talks to you as if she's talking to a friend. So, and she's like this when you meet her as well. But yeah, I get a lot from that. It's just a really nice connect. And that's why I opened Susanna. So those were the two that I remembered. And then with mine, with Notes from the Sea, the reason I do it really was to get a bit of a better understanding of who is connected to my work, to my creative projects, to the things that I put out in the world, but also as a personal invite to my own creativity. So I like writing it. You know, I like this whole concept of Notes from the Sea, that I have to think about what the topic will be. It's usually quite short. I feel like there's value there, but there probably could be more value. So last month I did a book giveaway. My friend's just published a book called The 1% Wellness Experiment, and she gave me a free copy, which was lovely. And I thought I'll have a read of that and then I'll give it away. I also share some of my photography in it as well that I don't share anywhere else online. So that feels like a bit of an exclusive. It's quite nice. I want people to feel held. I want people to feel like they've got time to slow down when they read Notes from the Sea. So I think sometimes people who have accidentally ended up on my list, it's maybe a disconnect. So that reminder of this is who I am, and this is why I write this monthly update feels important to me. It's just super personal, you know. So that's what I got. Feel free to put in the chat anything else that came up for you, any realizations or breakthroughs. So Amanda's saying, I realised that I like receiving long newsletters with lots of detailed craft advice, like Emma Darwin's Itch of Writing newsletter. I don't know that one. That sounds good though. But that I usually mark them to read later, then never do. Oh, interesting. So yeah, this place of our email inbox is a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because our email inbox is like the engine center of our work. So if we're using our emails for work, which most of us are, and a newsletter pops in, it's like, oh, well, I'm working, so I'll just leave that for now. Maybe I'll come back to it later. Or actually, I've got a bit of a break due. I'll have a little cup of tea and I'll sit and read that. Again, with our phones, you know, if we've got emails on our phones, then, you know, that can be quite nice. It can be like, oh, there's a nice email to sit and read. If we're commuting on a train or on a bus, I'll catch up with that person's news. That can be quite nice. So Gowan's saying I don't read any. This is good though. This is good. We need all of we need the whole spectrum. I feel like it makes sense to talk about things that I'm passionate about and get me excited. I think what I need though is to let people know about what I'm doing, remind people that I'm out there and busy and what I am doing. So perhaps some content could be like an article and something like an update. Yeah, for sure. So you'll get a sense of how you want to shape what this is, how long feels good, how often you want to do, and that'll just kind of come hopefully throughout the workshop. because we're all really unique in this. But one of the things that you can spend some time doing over the next week or so is just observing how other people set out their newsletters or their Substacks. If you do find people online that you'd like to follow on Substack and subscribe to, you've got the option of receiving that information in your email inbox or leaving it within the Substack app. And if you leave it within the Substack app, it's like an app for readers. That's how Substack sort of describe it. And it's on our phone, a lovely place to read long form content. It hasn't got the pull of social media the way there's videos and fast moving stuff and sales and adverts that we didn't ask for. There are no adverts. So it's literally just an inbox for the things that you want to read. You can have them both in the app and in your email inbox, or you can just choose to keep them in the Substack app. So that's going to be something we'll go into around homework so that you can find things that you like. When we're in this kind of deep creative well of what do we want to do, we've got to be careful about how much outside influence we bring in. You'll know your tolerance for that. For me, a lot of the time I need to just quiet all the noise of what everybody else is doing and just create. And then I have like, once I've done that, I feel like, okay, it's okay to let some other things in. I'm not going to be influenced by that or feel any sort of imposter syndrome or comparisonitis or any of those horrible things that we can feel as creatives. So you know your tolerance with that. When you were writing out what you felt your newsletter could be, did anyone have a really clear sense of like, yes, I've been wanting to do this for ages, I'm going to do weekly or I'm going to do monthly? Did it feel really clear to anybody? I'm going to read of these. So Jacqueline says, I like newsletters that offer input, inspiration, education, as well as download information on me. I enjoy the Literary Hub, Letters of Note, the Blue Stocking. These sound great names for newsletters. Some with substance, some short and sweet. Katie says, I like ones that are gently provocative and ask me to do something. Stop you in your tracks like that. So Ruth, yes, so the whole workshop is about Substack. No, you don't pay for it. It's completely free to set up a newsletter on Substack. Wendy says, the one I read every month is the Point Spittles newsletter. It's hyperlocal and a brief round relevant to my own work on a community newsletter. Like to use a newsletter for my historic fiction to share some of the research that can't go in the prose images, diary entries on the date, etc., and ultimately to sell some books for sure. Yeah, so going back to that reason, like you have to be motivated to do it. It's not another thing to do. The idea is that you've got a reason that you want to speak to people directly, either to get to know them better and understand who's connected to your work or to sell your work or both, you know. So we really have to get clear on what's the point of this, and then it becomes easier. The process of kind of writing something and sending it out into the void feels easier. Okay, so any other questions on what a newsletter is and can be? I know the word newsletter is it's a bit misleading in some ways because it's not really the news. It can be your news, but it's more than that. It's just a regular point to send people things. Yeah, I feel like it's good to say that. We'll all do it differently. So the time. So Amanda's saying, I sometimes feel a bit stuck with newsletters as I'd like mine to have better quality content, but don't feel like I have enough time to produce something that's only going to a few people and probably straight to a junk folder. Yeah. So when you are starting to build up what your newsletter is and how it feels, there's a creative practice in that. So when I was saying to you about Notes from the Sea, my promise to myself was that I would go to the sea every single month. I only live a 10-minute drive away, but it's amazing how quickly a month can pass and I've not been. So the intention is I go to the beach for my own well-being and have a think about what it is that I want to say within that newsletter format. And so then I take my photograph. So those two things are done. So I already know I've had to think about what I want to say. And then there's a format in mind where I basically just duplicate the same newsletter every month and then plug the gaps. So if there's anything new that I want to say about work, if there's anything that I want to kind of offer anybody, it's already set up as a format, and we'll have a little look at that today as well. So it doesn't feel like a ton of work. It feels really easy and part of my creative practice. And I know that month on month it builds up with more and more subscribers and more people getting to know me and my work and being connected to what it is that I'm trying to do in the world. So yeah, I think at first it is definitely a bit of a uphill climb, but with Substack, if you learn from me, it's not going to take you that long to to get some subscribers to your work. Like that's the whole point that I recommend Substack as the engine for newsletter growth. Like that's what I've been doing. That's what I teach people to do. That's what works. Even if you're not on there very much, promise. Okay, I'll just check the chat again. Yeah, I think it's really nice to consider that hyper local element as well. So one of the things that I think sometimes we forget in the Northeast is that it's very charming to people outside of the Northeast, both people in the UK and people internationally. And my newsletter is now read across 81 countries since I imported it into Substack. It just blows my mind. And it's because the Northeast is charming. That's it, you know. But yes, I do think my work is worth reading, but yeah, it's a real asset being here. There is so much to talk about, and there's a fascination in as much as we've got this kind of thread of the forgotten North, or what's it really like up North. There's a lot goes on around that sort of rhetoric, and I've found it really fascinating to demystify some of that and be like, yeah, it's great. You might want to book a holiday. So yes, hyperlocal is a really nice thing to pull on, and something that could be really interesting to you, because you've got to keep it kind of interesting to you, and it's got to feel nice to you. I just want to talk about subscribers for a little bit, and then we'll do some screen sharing. I'll show you the Substack platform. When you think about someone subscribing to your work, either on social media or in an email inbox, how does that make you feel? Like, do you feel happy about that? Do you feel like that would be okay if like such and such down the road subscribed, if family subscribed, if colleagues subscribed? Is that what you want, or does that feel terrifying? I would love to get a measure from you all on how that feels. You just pop in the chat. The second part of that question is really about how many people we would like to be talking to. Like ideally, like if we hold 2024, do we want a small group of, 100, 200, 300? Do we want thousands, tens of thousands, more than that? Who do we want on our list? Chloe's saying, I think I am used to it now, and I like it, but I did delete Granny from my newsletter subscribers. Sorry, Granny. Yeah, we really have to find a way with this stuff, don't we? So my lovely mum was on my Instagram stories, but she would just send like hearts and stuff to every story that I put on, and I just would find it really overwhelming because I have people messaging me about work and stuff on Instagram. So I had to just block my mum from my stories and be like, Mum, you're not on my stories anymore, but I'll ring you. It's fine. So yeah, we have to kind of work out what we're doing and where we want it to land and how that's all going to feel. Cowan says, I think it's very much linked to process. It could feel a lot of pressure and something else to do, but if the doing felt straightforward, then that could be exciting. Yeah, for sure. Alison says, I'd really like it to feel like talking to people in a two-way conversation rather than it just being one-way things I'm posting, which is why I don't like Instagram. Yeah, Instagram can feel like just a bit of a bulletin board, can't it? Like marketing, people scrolling, low attention spans. It's hard. Newsletter's different to that. Jacqueline says, personally, it's an amazing privilege when people want to read, see what I write, take to performance. I find it thrilling. My daughters are, and often say, Mum, love it. Philippa says, it does feel scary to me as well as exciting, the idea that people I know and maybe who don't get me reading it and what they might think about it. Yeah, for sure. So when I first had my mailing list and I would go through who subscribed, it used to literally make me freeze. Like I was like, I don't know how. I don't know how to hold those names in a room and write to them. And so I didn't. So I stopped and I put all that down and I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. They might not even be opening it. They might have just done it to be kind. They might be really interested, whatever. What I'm going to do is forget and I'm going to write it for 2 people. So I now write my newsletter every single month for 3 people. Someone I've never met on the internet, somebody that I've met in real life, and somebody else that I've met in real life. And the reason I've chosen those 3 avatars, kind of archetypes, if you like, is because it makes me feel really calm and happy to write the newsletter. So if I get any sort of writer's block, or if I feel like I don't want to do it, which doesn't really happen now anyway, because I've been doing it for that long, I just hold those three people and imagine that the one that I don't know in real life has come round to my kitchen and the other two are around. And it's like, those are people that really get my work. They're really interested in it. They're really creative. They're not in the arts sector, because I've realized that was tripping me up. When I first started writing Notes from the Sea, I had this whole just like crushing set of like emotions around, what if people from my sector read it? Like, I'm gonna have to make it really polished, really professional. And we've got LinkedIn for that. So, you know, you can have a different tone of voice in a newsletter. Of course, you can be super professional and it can be like very much your professional sense of who you are in the world. But mine wasn't that. Mine was more about, this is where I am in the world. And as a whole person, away from what I might present in a boardroom, this is what I want to say. So it was a lot around uncovering creative voice, and has been about cultivating that practice. That's felt really good, but it doesn't have to be. It can be very strategic. Here are my updates. Here are the things that you need to know. Here's where to click for tickets or artwork or whatever else it needs to be. You can go either of those two routes. Yeah, that's completely up to you. So thinking about just two people, because I've made mine more complicated now. If it was just two people that were really interested in you and your work, but weren't necessarily immediate family, because that complicates it, and just colleagues, but friendly colleagues. So people that really root for you, people that come to your shows, people that ask you what you're working on, people that give you money for crowdfunders, those really supportive people. What are their names and what do we know about them? So let's spend a few minutes having a think about that. I'll put that prompt in the chat. Okay, so we'll keep going with that for another couple of minutes. If there's anything else that we can know about these two people, that would be great. And then we're going to move into the question around who it would be really difficult to write for if they were on your list. So you have to pick somebody that you know for this. So say if such and such subscribe to your list, why would it be really difficult for you to sit down and write your list? So some examples for me is internalized patriarchy, somebody like high into fast living, consumerism, quite a selfish person, someone quite opinionated, not generous with ideas. So I'm looking to try and find that spot between that kind of overwhelm and I can't write because that person's reading it or that person might, be a threat, and this beautiful space of these are the people that I'm in service to, this is who I'm showing up for. So I'll put that in the chat as well. Okay, I'll move us on, but you can spend more time on that in your own time if you want to. Feel free to put in the chat any breakthroughs that you had around who you would be writing for and who you definitely wouldn't be writing for. Sometimes people will end up on our mailing list, and that's fine. They can move on in their own time, but we don't have to be concerned with how our work is landing. It's all okay. And that's really what I want to say. It is all okay. It's about feeling safe and sharing what we want to share in a way that feels really good to us. And I do think personally, it's a practice. It's been a practice for me. It hasn't been easy, to just be given social media and then say, right, Claire, now you just talk about all your offers in the world. You talk about your projects. Like I have found that a real process. One of the resources that I wanted to recommend, if anybody else is the same, is this one. It's called How to Own the Room. It's by a writer called Viv Groskop. She's got some columns in the Telegraph and stuff as well, but it's a really, really good book. She's great on podcasts too. So have a listen to Viv or grab that book if you feel like you've got more work to do around that stuff. Was really helpful to me. So now that we've got a little bit more insight into those people, like I said, feel free to share in the chat and I'll just keep talking just to kind of keep the workshop moving on. We've got this sense of, okay, like these are the people that are going to really receive my work. These are the things that I know about them. These are the people that might become customers, right? They might become clients. They might become audience members. They're really interested already. I want to write for them. There's a beautiful exchange. There's also this other person, this unknown. Somebody could end up on my list. Somebody might think it's not for them. Somebody might send a negative email. There's all of this sort of stuff that could happen. But actually, as long as we're showing up for the people that we want to show up for, that can only grow. One of the things that I think is a really nice analogy to think about newsletters is if you're stood outside the pub having an amazing conversation with someone about everything that you're both interested in, and it just feels like you could talk for hours, that is an exchange. It's a creative exchange. You're all having a lovely time. Inside the pub, there could be conversations going on that you're firstly not interested in, secondly don't agree with, thirdly, values clash, all of that's going on in there. But you guys have got your conversation, you can move it into the pub. And when you move it into the pub, there might be others that join that conversation and join that chat. You just don't know. That's the thing. It's really beautiful to be able to have this conversation. And that's what we're doing. Even though it feels like we're talking into the void, if we post on social media or if we're writing a newsletter when we're just starting, the idea is it's a conversation. So our language can invite that. Our language can invite conversation and collaboration. It can invite replies and comments, which I'll go into when we look at Substack. But it's really a conversation, or it's a set of statements or an article. We can decide which art form feels the closest to the way that we want to work. So Gowan saying, I find the idea of writing to someone specifically very helpful. Great idea. Yeah, it works so well. Like, I would not recommend doing anything that I haven't spent time doing myself. Like, I think it's great. I do it every single time. It's perfect. So Amanda says, yes, me too. Great, good. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. And we still have to quiet the noise of, is this worth our time, right? And if it is worth our time, how much of our time? We really have to kind of go into that today, and we will. But I'm going to start sharing my screen so that I can show you guys a little bit of Substack, and then we'll just have a little comfort break, and then we'll go into some more looking around Substack, thinking about what it could be for us. And we'll go into some questions once I stop the recording as well. Right, let me just get my share screen button. Oh, the judgment, Jacqueline. Sorry, yes, I've just seen that for sure, for sure. And this is where there might just be a little bit of a dance between what you're actually comfortable with saying until you start getting that feedback in the conversation. Once you start writing for your people and they start coming and more people start coming, that noise of that kind of intimidation of somebody else will quiet down, and you might just feel safer and better in terms of being heard and in terms of what you want to say. There's also something really beautiful on Substack called the paywall. So it's a free service to use, but we can paywall our work. And honestly, what a game changer. It's been incredible for me to go, it's not for any of you, it's for these people underneath this paywall in this really safe space. It's less to do with the money and more to do with, like, this is space holding and this is what this is. But yes, we'll go into it. Let me get my share screen up. So can you all see that okay? Just give me a little thumbs up. I think that should be all good. So this is the Substack desktop. This is me, Claire Venus, here. I've got a little handle. We'll be familiar with what a handle is. So that's just how other people can mention us. So, you know, we've seen that on Twitter, we've seen that on Instagram, we've seen that on the socials. That's a way that people can mention us in either their newsletter or in Substack's inbuilt social media called Notes. Don't worry, we'll take it a step at a time. Underneath my bio here, this is Sparkle on Substack. So this is a space that is purely about Substack teaching. So it's a space that I set up, like I mentioned at the start, to hold people who are either new to the platform or want some cheerleaders and some colleagues and some space holding around joyfully growing their Substack. This is my original newsletter space that I spoke to you about. So back in 2017, you know, it was called Notes from the Sea, and that now exists under this writer handle here. But what I found is that there is space there for me to do other things. So I also run a membership there. This one is a podcast that I co-host with a colleague for mums. So it's a space for mums in business. And it's a really slow grow community over there, but we do 4 podcasts a year, and we've got a community of guest articles and different things going on. Hopefully, for those of you in Northumberland, you will have heard of Culture Northumberland. So Culture Northumberland is a project that I take care of for the local authority. And it's really about profile raising and diversifying, helping artists and writers to diversify their income. That's what we're all about. But we do showcase a lot of what's on in Northumberland, and we have various different funded projects and other projects to try and help artists and creatives raise their profile. So that's that there. You can see, obviously, these are some of the things that I've published recently. So that's just going to be like all my stuff under my different Substacks. Substack do not recommend setting up multiple publications. So these are all my publications. Because I'm a multi-hyphenate and because I have. So I'm just going to say that mine will look very complicated to somebody seeing it for the first time. It absolutely doesn't have to be. And that's why we're going to head over here. So this is the Culture Northumberland dashboard. So Culture Northumberland existed in a MailChimp mailing list server for a long time, and we were heading towards the 400 subscriber mark. And so I decided to move it over to Substack and see what could happen as part of that. So all that this is Culture Northumberland's newsletter and some other blogs and articles, and now a research podcast that I'm working on as part of a project. So it's the most stripped back Substack that I can show you, because my others are a little bit more complicated. So this is the dashboard. This is what we can see. So when you log into Substack, you'll get the option to see your own Substack. Obviously, it's called Culture Northumberland, so that's at the top. There's a little space for a logo there. And then this is telling us that we've got 8 paid subscribers and we've got 460 free subscribers. Now, what's happened here is that that's grown over 11 in the last 30 days. And so part of that is down to the Substack network, and part of that will be to do with Beth, who does the social media, reminding people that we've got a newsletter that people can sign up to. It gives us our views, which are specifically views on the website and on the app, and it gives us our open rates. So if you're using Substack purely to see, you know, how many people are opening your email, that's what that is there. So we've got a 57% open rate, which is very high. So people will say anywhere between 3 and 11% open rate is high for a newsletter, especially for businesses. Like, that's the rate that they work between, 3 and 11%. For us, it's slightly different because we're hoping people are connected and that we're not just sort of sending them endless marketing emails. So yeah, we'd be looking at really sort of ideally like between 20% and 50% for our sector, I think is more realistic. So on the dashboard here, it's going to show us our latest posts, and it's going to show us what happened as part of those posts. So this one's just gone out today. So it's telling me it's got 31 views and it's been opened by 6 people, but 6% of our list, but it's obviously only just gone out. If I scroll down, so this one went out last Friday, so it's had a bit longer. This one's had a 57% open rate and it's had 562 views. Now, this is a reason why I fell in love with Substack, really, because it's not just a newsletter platform, but it can be. We've only got 460 subscribers, but this one got 562 views, which means that people went onto the Substack website and found it and read it and saw it. And also Substack might have sent it out for us. They do that sometimes. So that's happened. I also wanted to show you one, this one. So this was our highest opened one, remember, in the Sycamore Gap tree, with 61% opens and 966 views. The reason that that got more views is because obviously it was a worldwide news story and we are Culture Northumberland. So we wanted to say something about it and have a holding space for people's grief, and also a space that artists could chip in and share their work in the comments. So that's pushed our engagement right up through the Substack network. Our regular newsletters that we do, so I'll just go back to the first one and show you that. So if you're signed up to our list, this is exactly the same as what you'll receive in your email inbox. And then as well as that, we can post it to Substack. So that's what we do. So we're trying to grow the list. We want support from all over the world. We're interested in what can happen. It's a total experiment because obviously it's very niche specific, but this is it. And it's exactly how it would go into your email inbox. So really, really easy to design, really easy to hyperlink. And then there's all the news. There's some bits and bobs on our blog. And I wanted to just keep this same format. It's a very long format. It goes out every other month. So I feel like I can get away with it being really, really long form. Yeah, that's us. So that's what that looks like. If I go in to edit that post, what I can do is go into preview and see it as an email. So I can see it either as a mobile version of an email or in somebody's laptop desktop. So it's going to show me what that looks like before I send it, which is a very, very useful tool. But just to give you a sense of, we're holding a brand new concept called Substack. It can land in someone's email inbox. It can be published to the Substack website. So that's what we can do there. We can see what is possible for paid subscribers, for founding members for free. We've got the website or the email toggle there, and then the mobile and the desktop. I mean, it's very reassuring to have a look at the mobile version. I know with MailChimp, I had so many formatting issues, and my commissioner was always saying, I opened it on my phone and things were sort of lost. Yeah, I know. It's just not very easy to use, whereas with Substack, it all captures it for you. It's really, really easy. You can also send a secret draft link to a collaborator or a commissioner or a colleague before you send it out, and you can send a test email to yourself as well. So you'll be able to receive it exactly how somebody else would be able to receive it. Okay, we'll come out with that for now. We'll just leave that. So before we have a little break, this is a very basic Substack website that is holding all of our emails that we've sent out and posts, because I also post them as well as email them. You don't have to do that with Substack. You can purely email them to people, and I can show you how to do that. But we want a public holding space where people can find us and know what we are, that complements our website. So that's what this is. These you can change across the top. So obviously we have a podcast live now. So we've done 2 episodes. So there it is. If you didn't have a podcast and didn't want a podcast, you just wouldn't have this button. You just wouldn't display that button. The archive is absolutely everything that we've published. So yeah, we've got our sort of every other month newsletters and then some other bits and bobs. We're doing a push on paid subscribers at the moment, so we're trying to showcase what would be possible as part of that. And then we have an about page where new people can find out who we are, what we publish, and what we're about. So we've got the login for Culture Northumberland, so we can have that Culture Northumberland identity, and then I'm there as a writer and Beth's there as a writer as well. So that'd be the same on any newsletter that you land on. Okay, so I am going to give us just a 5-minute comfort break, because we've done a lot of soul searching, if you will, around why will we be writing a newsletter and who for. And now I've shown you a little bit of insight into the Substack platform. I know that you'll have questions. I know that there'll be things bubbling over, and I want to show you some more functions of the Substack website, but I think it's a good time just to have a little 5-minute break. So we'll do that, and then we'll come back together. If you've got any questions, and you want to pop them in the chat, feel free. So we'll come back together just after 1:30. Hi everyone. So we're just coming back together. I know someone's just come in brand new to everything. So we are recording the whole thing so you can go back over it as well. So let's wait for everyone to come back from their tea break. And I'm going to start and share my screen again. If you've got any questions, as I'm going, if you want me to cover anything, feel free to put that in the chat. And like I said, we are going to stop the recording and have some time just to be in a room together so that you can ask the questions that you feel are silly or anything else. It's all good. We've got time. Okay, let me share my screen. I wanted to share some other Substacks with you. 2 seconds, just get my... There we go. So, hopefully you can all see this. This is my lovely friend Yvette Jar. So Yvette started a Substack called The Choirs, and we spoke about it a lot. She decided that she was going to start a Substack so that she could talk about her developing your creative practice project. And she was also really curious about whether she could host a membership here and what that might look like. She's an artist, she's based in Hexham, she delivers online courses already, and she was curious whether Substack could work for her to hold people in another way where they would pay a monthly fee. So she's still figuring out that part of that process. I know that she did launch a membership, and she did it through another means, so you could talk to her about that, but she has a Substack presence here, and I know she'll get back to writing at some point. So she's got a newsletter that is through ConvertKit and that is focused on sales. This isn't that. This is something else. This is like behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't get in that newsletter. She uses that primarily for sales. She uses this for connection. So that's Yvette's. This is Beth Kempton. You might have heard of Beth. She's a best-selling author. I think she's written 6 or 7 books. She's relatively new to Substack. She's a big community space holder. She loves to encourage people to write. So she has just finished up her free winter writing sanctuary, and she hosted that via Instagram and Substack and an online course portal, and people would comment and bring in their words to this space. So she had a specific space that she could send them the URL to, and they would come and they would share their words in the comments. So this is Beth's Substack again, and a really lovely example. You could have a look at these in your own time. You just need a free Substack account to have a look. This is an artist called Marley Grace. So Marley's a really interesting artist. She's mixed media. She's in the US. They paused their Instagram account, actually just completely took themselves off Instagram, I think with about 80,000 followers, and is all in on Substack. So yeah, it's been really, really interesting to see this journey from Marley. I really love their work. I think that it's really beautiful to hear somebody else hold being an artist and being financially really successful, and maybe an artist that lots of us hadn't have heard of. I think originally I found them through a friend. So yeah, another really nice example to share with you guys. There's a podcast hosted here as well, and she does a monthly column, hopefully. Oh yeah, that's going to take us in there. So that's taken us straight into Spotify. One of the things that you can do is hyperlink to other spaces from this top toolbar. So they've been quite clever there. So this is an advice column that they run as well in their Substack portal, magical world of Substack. This is Simon. So Simon is right here in the Northeast somewhere and has a wildly successful Substack. The idea behind Simon's Substack is that you can do a read along of War and Peace in a year. So he holds his community, of which I think there are about 900 paid subscribers and maybe like 6,000 or 7,000 free subscribers, to read a chapter of War and Peace a day for an entire year. So my husband's just joined this year, which is why I know about Simon. He's very, very supportive of other writers in the region, and a great person to look at in terms of how he's set up his Substack. Please don't be overwhelmed. We can still use it as a newsletter, I promise. I just wanted to get a bit expansive and show you some other examples. And then this is Emma Gannon, again, Sunday Times bestselling author. One of the reasons I was curious about Substack is because I followed Emma's work and I knew that she had a Substack. So I was really interested in seeing how she runs it. So Substack is her main income now. So she runs, I think she has well over 1,000 paid subscribers and kind of boasts this whole six-figure business vibe mainly through Substack. That's what she's doing. So she's kind of stopped her podcast. It's just Substack and like the odd speaking gig here and there. She's appearing at Annex Storyfest in February if you want to hear more about Emma. But yeah, really good to see her journey there over the last, well, nearly 2 years now that I've been using the platform, and see what it's been able to be for her, because I think, you know, it was just a place for her to host a mailing list to start with, and it's become something much, much more than that. Let me just check the chat. Oh, it's okay, Sharon, don't worry, that's all good. You can watch the recording to catch up with where we did some journaling prompts in the first half, which really helped you to better understand why you might want to write a newsletter and any barriers to it. How do you cut through the noise to tell people you're there? And does there have to be a USP to stand out, sharing your knowledge, passion enough? No. So for so long, we've been told, like, you need to have a niche, you need to be really clear, like, you can't be mysterious, it needs to be really clear. Like, there's a lot in that if we're on social media, which is used by billions of people, but Substack has around about 18,000 writers, so newsletter writers or people that create Substacks, and 35 million readers. So the people who read your Substack, those people are there and ready for more content and more things to be able to find and read and more communities to join. And also you've got your community that you're connected to in your work as well, right? So that's up to you how you want that stuff to cross over. You might want to tell people on LinkedIn about it, on Instagram, you might want to tell colleagues, and you might not, you know, there's the opportunity there to build something up that is just you and just your voice for a little while. So we've got some time. How is Substack different from WordPress? WordPress is a website builder. Substack is a publication builder. The simplest way that I can say it. Yeah. So Substack is more like MailChimp or ConvertKit or Flowdesk. If you've used any of those email programs or you've received emails from them, it's more like that. But its passion and the founder's passion is that it is a place for creatives, a place for writers, a place to hold sophisticated thoughts and nuanced thoughts and long form writing and podcasts and video and all of that. So the idea is that you have, and these aren't my words, these are Forrest Dawes' words, your personal media empire. Don't be put off by that. She calls it that because she used to work in media, right? But I get it. Like, I get how expansive it can be. It's amazing. And it's been amazing to grow on this platform. So we'll just jump back to humble little culture Northumberland. We've been all over the place there, and you can find whatever you want to find on there. So there are categories that you can search. There's around about 12 different categories of different topics that you can search to find other writers if you want to. But again, just going back to my point of make sure you do what's right for you. Like, do your research, yes, but quiet the noise. Like, if you feel like researching other people is going to, quash your voice and make it hard for you to find your written voice or the way that you want to show up there, maybe just do some more of that journaling work first. So we're going to send a little email. Here we go. So we're on the dashboard. We're going to go to post. And this is our email, right? So super, super easy. I can take myself off as the author. I could put Beth on as the author and say that this one's from Beth. So if you are working within a team or you're working within colleagues, you just need to get them to set up a Substack account and you can do that. You can take the authors off completely. If you don't want it to show through that it's from anybody, you can just take that off. Obviously, you just put your title in there and any subtitle that you want. And then, dear, friend, say, we're going to just do that. Now, in MailChimp and the other marketing-based, sales-based newsletters, you would be able to insert somebody's name. You can't do that here. It's not what it's about. So it's about finding that tone that works for you, like how you want to introduce yourself, like, I'm back again, whatever it is that you want to say. You've got access to the Unsplash library. So you can literally search anything that's within Unsplash and just insert that if you want to put a photo in to break up the text. So once you've got that, you can adjust the size of it as well. Really easy to do. And then you would just carry on typing. One of the things that everybody encourages you to do that knows anything about Substack is to stick in your subscribe button. So like I showed you with the Sycamore Gap post, I put subscribe buttons in that, and that's why we ended up with an influx of new subscribers from all over the world when I put that post out. And it also just reminds people, oh yeah, it's a newsletter, I can subscribe to get that, and however way I choose. So as a reader, obviously we set that up, whether that's in our email inbox or in the Substack app. There are also lots of other buttons here. So I won't go through them all today, but this is really helpful if you'd like to do a custom button to send somebody somewhere else. So if you want to send them to your website, if you want to send them to your Instagram, you would literally just put head here for more or whatever text it is, and then you'd put the URL that you wanted in there. So let's just, for argument's sake, put Yvette's URL in there, so that you can see, super easy to do. You can send anybody off Substack. You won't be penalized like you are on social media for sending anybody off the platform. Like, it's totally fine to do that. It's your list of people that have subscribed to hear from you in any way, which way that you choose. And you can download that list and move them somewhere else. GDPR compliant ways of moving them. But yeah, it's your list. You can take them off Substack and put them in another newsletter or whatever else that you want to do, you can do that. So that's really different about Substack as well. Other things that you can do is you can pop in an audio embed or a voiceover. So some people, and this is really lovely, some people like to read out their newsletters. So there's a lady that I follow who's in the Shetland Isles, and she always reads their newsletters, and they've always got that kind of character to the backdrop of that. So she's just recording in her kitchen, and there's the sort of the dog and whatever else, and you can do that here. You can put in audio if you want to put in audio. So it's slightly different to creating a podcast. It's literally just an audio embed that you could put in there. So say if you'd recorded a Zoom with somebody and you wanted to put that in to share, I caught up with such and such, I've got like 20 minutes of the conversation here for you. You could put that in. You can also embed video as well. So you can upload directly into Substack to embed it. You can also record a video into Substack. This is it's only just come out of beta testing, so it's not been live very long, but it is there and it is an opportunity for us. If you were to paste in a YouTube URL here, it would just automatically embed. So I do that a lot for my members. We record our workshops, I put a paywall in, and then I'll put the video underneath the paywall. to put a paywall in, you just do this. So only people who pay for the newsletter would get to see what's underneath if that's what we were doing. And again, you don't have to do that. You don't have to set that up now or in the future. You can just use it as a newsletter platform, but you do have the capacity to do all these things. So I wanted to show you that. I don't do anything with the code block. I just leave that well alone. I've learnt my lesson on WordPress. I don't do anything with that. But some of you might be interested to know it's an option. There's a poll option again. So this can be really good for getting engagement, to get a sense of your audience and who they are. So you would just put your question. Something like that. And then I tend to just put them on forever because why not? And then you can hide the vote count if it's something sensitive and you can pop that in. Then when people land on the newsletter, they can vote in their email inbox or they can come onto the Substack app or the Substack desktop to kind of check that. Engagement is encouraged on Substack, so it's not as harsh as the other algorithmic spaces online, but if your post is getting a lot of engagement, Substack will push that out to more people through its network. So by emailing it to people, by putting it on the leaderboards, there are kind of various different leaderboards across categories. So if you're really keen to grow a list quite quickly, it's a really good tool to use, and I'll be able to talk to that more in the future, depending on if there's a new program coming out that you can sign up to do with me if you want to learn more about this stuff. So back to the buttons, loads of different options there, but really easy to use. It's so quick to write a newsletter. And then you might have seen that I had like a little page break in mine. I'll just show you how I did that. I just designed it up in Canva and then popped in just to have that personal touch. You don't need to do this, but it's just something that I did. So after however many paragraphs, I would probably put that in as a bit of just a break for the readers. Sometimes put it underneath a button. You know, you can play around. People have just had fun with that, but you might see that on the platform. That's not something that you can find here. You have to design that elsewhere and then insert it as an image. You can do your bullet points. They're good, nice to do. You can change them to numbers. So that's a nice option too. And then you've got your link tool as well. So very basic, but yeah, you could put your little URL in there and that's going to hyperlink the text. I'll just put Yvette's in again to show you. I'm going to change the color. So the colours that you see here are the colours that I've set up for Culture Northumberland. So it's a blue and then it's got this kind of greyish background. You can set them up, you can leave them exactly how they are and Substack will just choose something for you. I think the default is orange and white, but you can choose your colours when you set up your Substack. That's really easy to do. So you can have your brand colours in there. You can also have different headers if you want to kind of space out the different things that you're talking about and use bold and italics. I hope this isn't boring and hope it's helpful. It's just really good going across these top buttons so that you can see everything there. So imagine we're done. Let's just give something to the paid subscribers. So you can see. And then you've seen this already in the class, but you go into preview and then you've got the option to see it as in the desktop. You've got the option to see what free subscribers see. And there's going to be a paywall there. And then if we go back up and we change it to paid subscribers, then there we go. That is going to give us all of it. And all the paid subscriber is going to see is a little check mark that says subscribed. So that's that. And that's our email. So if we're done with that and we're happy to send it out, we're going to just continue. We'll say it's for everyone. It's going to say I'm going to take the paywall out then if it's for everyone. So I'll say, okay, that's fine. We can have comments for either everyone or paid subscribers or no one. So it would just literally block off the comment function if we didn't want anyone to comment, if it wasn't that sort of vibe or, you know, we'd made that decision about our work. But I usually recommend as an engagement consultant, you want everybody to be able to comment and you want to be try to invite that as well. We don't need to do tags. The reason that we don't need to do tags is because tags are a way of just magnetizing our work into a section And we don't need to do that for this. So say, for example, Yvette's got developing your creative practice there. She might have that tag for every time she does a newsletter related to that, or every time she does a post related to that, but we're not going to do it for this. But it just means it puts all of your newsletters or articles into a collection under that heading. We don't need to do it for this one. And then you've got the option to send via email and the Substack app. So if you do that, you are giving your work to Substack to roll out however you want Substack to roll your work out. Obviously, I've already mentioned if it gets busy and it looks popular and it's getting lots of views, Substack will show it to more people. But our intention is just to reach our people. You can also schedule your time as well. If you want to schedule your newsletters for the future or reach more people on the other side of the world, you can do that. If I uncheck that box, all that's going to happen is it's going to post to Substack and it's not going to email everybody. So we'll just want to make sure that's definitely checked so that we're emailing everybody. And then we would just use that send button. I'll definitely not press that now. I'll not be tempted. So that's what we can do. The other thing that I want to show you, because this is really a Substack post that is published to your Substack website, if you like. So the Substack, collection of whatever our Substack ends up being, that's what that is. But let me go back, because if you just wanted to email your subscribers, now I have to be really careful because I can't show people's email addresses, but say I did that one there and just selected everybody and then press this email button, then this is going to email them and it's not going to go on the Substack website. It's not going to be posted to the Substack website that you set up for yourself. It's just going to email them. So it's exactly the same functionality, but you would just be emailing them. Now, mostly people just use this if they've got a special offer or something like that. So they'd use it for, say, free subscribers only, and then to try and convert them to paid subscribers. But you can use it just to email people if you don't want it posted publicly. I just wanted to show you that. I'm just going to check in on the chat. Can I ask, is Substack now your own preferred platform compared to the others you've used? Asking as a possible shortcut. So I have my website, and my website is also my course platform, but I don't do any blog work there, and I don't, I email from Substack, and I have like a creative smorgasbord really of what's possible through all of my different creative projects on Substack. So I definitely have my professional website. I do have Instagram, but again, it's more like a reminder tool for me. But I think everybody has a different sense of what the content ecosystem can be for them, especially when they start bringing in Substack. And this class was really just about, if you started a newsletter, what would that be? So we almost need to kind of quiet what Substack could be and just go, okay, like if we just use it as a newsletter tool, what would that be? Just for the purposes of this. So Ruth says, with newsletters, would you expect many people to respond to it? If so, how? Via email or on the Substack platform? Is it rare that folks respond? So I would say in the sort of 6 years of writing my newsletter, I probably got in that time maybe 12, 15 replies directly to my email. Now on Substack, I'm fielding sometimes 80 comments. So it's really different. It's really different. It's blown my own mind. So Sharon says, what about copyrighted audio, a quote from a film with an actor's voice? I do not know the answer to that, Sharon. I don't know. I don't know what we would do. I mean, I tend to use quotes and then link to the person who said it, just written quotes, but I don't know about voice stuff. But we could ask, we could find out. It's much easier than MailChimp for sure. Yeah, I always reply to every single comment. Obviously, as an engagement consultant, like it's my world. So if somebody is taking the time to say something that they want to say, and then I would always, always, always reply to them. And sometimes I have to sit and like be focused about that and take some time over it. But it's a joy, to be honest. I mean, it's really nice to do. It's a lovely thing. I feel like having that connection has really helped shape my practice and my work, because I'm a real co-creator anyway. So it's been really nice to do. Okay, so I've whistle stopped us through the platform, and I know it can feel overwhelming. I know it can feel expansive and possible, but I just want to pause there and go back to our journaling. Now that you've seen a little bit of what Substack can be, and I know I've moved quite quickly, are there any light bulb moments for you guys around how it could hold your newsletter and what you would want it to be? Are we thinking simple? Are we thinking we could put lots of different things into it? Are we more open to writing one now you've seen the ease of the platform? Can you let me know in the chat, just so I can steer the last half an hour in a way that feels good to you all? Can definitely show you around some more of Substack, but I really didn't want to overwhelm you because if it's a brand new platform, people are like, wait, what? Um, okay. Okay, so Wendy's saying definitely will take a look as it'll fit my market really well, especially the audio video options. Yeah, for sure. So the main things to know about Substack as a platform, like obviously I don't work for them, I'm not on commission. Like this is genuinely me just really excited about the potential for us for creatives because we can have as many people finding our work day and night as they have on their platform, and they've invested a lot in their platform. They've put in an inbuilt social media network called Notes, Substack Notes. So it's at this point, if I post on Substack Notes, I usually get between 10 and 15 new subscribers just from posting and being like, I've got this thing to say. It's wild. They just come over and subscribe. So there's a hunger for people arriving, and there's a lot of people arriving, 35 million readers, remember, and there's this hunger of them trying to kind of find what it is that they want to read and what they're interested in. So I am feeling that, and this is why I'm promoting this as a space to use for your work, because I feel like the more eyes that we can get on our work, the more sustainable our businesses as creatives are. And it's tough, it's tough in the funded sector. It's been tough for a little while, and it just feels like it's getting more tough. And I'm just so passionate about us getting a little bit more entrepreneurial and being able to hold space for the people that are interested in our work. So Sharon's saying, I do have a Substack account, but not sure the best way to optimize it. Yeah, and I think it's about growing into it, Sharon. So the program that I have just had funded through Berwick CCZ will hold 4 people. And Andrea said that she can up this 4 people through a year of learning Substack. So they'll get support from me as a mentor. They'll get support on their own Substacks. We'll do everything together, set it all up together. They'll get my membership, and they'll also get time with a branding consultant as well. Lovely Sarah Robertson that lives up in the Scottish borders. So it's really about somebody who really wants to make the most of the opportunity and be held for a full year. So all the way through 2024. It's completely funded. It's free. The only thing you need to do is do a short application form so that we know why you're interested. So I'm going to email that out to everybody afterwards. And yeah, I asked Andrea yesterday, I said, look, I'm feeling like there might be a few more people interested. Can we hold space for that? And she was really fine with that. So that's exciting. Yeah, so James is saying, open my eyes to the possibilities in different elements such as voiceover, podcast. I can see this working well for my target audience. I feel more confident to get started using Substack. Good. Yes. So I've got around about 12 YouTube tutorials, which are completely free. So if you look for me on YouTube, I can share my URL in the chat, but I did those last year. I really just wanted to just put them out there and just be of service to people. So if you want more tutorial type stuff, that's there. I've also got Sparkle on Substack. There's a lot of free content there. And then there's the membership option, and then there's this funded option. So there's more space if you want to try and use Substack for sure. Like the idea of including blogs. Yeah, that's what I did. I moved my WordPress blog over to Substack because I had lots of blogs about my creative practice on there, and they were kind of just like lost and not really optimized for SEO. So I just put them under a little tag to say creative projects. So they sit on Creatively Conscious now as well. Yeah, great. Good. Okay. So just to let you guys know the difference that it's made to me, obviously, I do have a skill set where like I'm a creative producer, I'm a writer, like I can be all of these things, but I haven't felt intimidated by the other writers on there because I'm not trying to be them. Like I am me. I've got my career in the arts and cultural sector. I love what I do. I'm just showing up and being me. I'm not aspiring to be Emma Gannon or Beth Kempton or any of those others. I love their work. I'll read their work. It's fine. So it's really about you holding who will subscribe to you and to your work. And for me, obviously, it's been brilliant to be able to have that warmth of reaction and response. So when I used to put something out in my newsletter, a few years ago, there might have been like one or two people interested, like small numbers. The last free workshop that I put on, which wasn't Substack related, got 56 signups. It's just like people all over the world like, yeah, I'll come to your workshop, Claire, that sounds great. So it's really, really different, and I've been very surprised by that. I still am, it's still been quite difficult to get my head around like how that works, but it does work because I learned how to use the platform and how to optimize my Substack. So there's so much more that I could tell you about how to do that in a way that feels really good, but we want to just keep it really basic today in that who are we writing to, what are we writing about, and how often. So it's those three questions. So we're going to finish with those three questions, and I'm going to stop recording so that people can just stay and quiz me. So let me put that in the chat. Just to see if it sharpened it for you. So who are we writing to? What about? How often? And a secret fourth one, which is about what we want to shift, because I'm passionate about you all having a mailing list because it's made such a difference to me in my business. Like I wouldn't be promoting it if it hadn't, and I really feel like there's so much opportunity. So rather than feeling frustrated by social media, we might be like, oh, we've got more people coming to see our work or more people listening to our podcast, whatever it is. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to have a little look at those questions, and you can keep questioning this stuff, you can keep revisiting it and coming back to it and questioning, okay, would that feel good? You can test out some writing and see how that feels. You could show it to a couple of your supporters, supportive colleagues or critical friends or audience members, whoever it is that you've got in your circle. It's really good to do. I've just put in the chat the link to, it's a really simple form, like I said, a Google form if you want year-long fully funded support. So originally I'd discussed with Andrea doing that for 4 people, but like I said, I asked her yesterday, could we do it for more than 4 if there's interest? So the idea is that it would be a small group program where we would work together and we would work on your Substacks so that you could get the most out of what the platform could offer, with the view to offering like a paywalled set of memberships or content or however it is that you want to look at that, and that you would have branding support as well. You don't have to brand up your Substack, but it will ask you if you want to put any colors on there. You can keep it super, super basic and simple. But if you've been looking to work with a branding specialist anyway, and you feel like it's something that you should do for your, and I'll do the thing, personal brand, if you feel like you need more of that for yourself or for your business, be a really good thing to do, funded by CCZ. And then Sparkle on Substack, which is my teaching space. You can sign up there for free. There's loads of free resources. There's my YouTube as well, to have a look at if you want to just get on and crack on and do your own thing with it. Yeah, if there's anything that you want to share about those journaling prompts, feel free in the chat. But for those of you that are watching the recording, we're going to end there. Obviously, when I send the email, I'll put these links in the email. So you've missed out on the chat version, but you'll get them in the email. And hopefully you can just make sense of what you want and what's right for you. Any questions at all, email me about the funded program or about Substack or any other support that you need. Any questions that you've got that you don't feel were clear, I can try and help you. But I'll stop recording and thank you for being here.